Hey everybody, I'm Kyle and welcome to the channel. Follow along as we go over several everyday items to try and figure out which ones are going to improve your life without breaking your budget. If you've been trying to find a budget security camera for your home, this Wyze Cam Pan V3 might be the one for you. The nicest thing about this camera is by far the price. Right now, they're going for about $38, which is very, very cheap for a security camera. With that price, you're only going to get 1080p HD video, but this camera still has a lot of other cool qualities. This camera's field of view is 120 degrees. This camera has 180 degrees of vertical tilt, and it also has a full 360 degrees horizontally. This camera has enhanced infrared night vision due to its infrared LEDs. With this camera, you're able to view video in real time, but you're also able to listen and even speak through this camera utilizing the Wyze app. A lot of security cameras have the ability to detect motion. However, at this price tag, it is pretty impressive that this camera also has that ability. This camera can be used indoor and outdoors due to its IP65 rating. As far as storage for your videos that are recorded, you can choose to have local recording, which means utilizing the SD port on this camera. But you can also pay for the Wyze subscription, which has several other improvements with its detection settings. This specific camera model is not going to be battery powered. It's simply going to have a connector to the camera as well as a typical household outlet. Plug it, damn it. This specific camera model isn't going to be battery powered. It is powered through a standard cord plugged into the bottom of the camera, and all you have to do is just plug it straight into your household outlet. For as budget friendly as this camera is, it does have a lot of good qualities still. Its ability to track motion and actually turn the camera to follow whatever triggered the motion detection is a nice thing to have. Another thing that's actually not super commonly seen in more budget-friendly cameras is with this camera being not waterproof but IP65 rated, with it being able to be out in the rain or dust and not get broken by any of that, that is pretty impressive for its price range. Another thing that is kind of neat about this camera is that if you're worried about having a bunch of cameras on and you don't necessarily want them to record while you're home or anything like that, you can actually select the privacy mode button on this camera in the Wyze app, and you can have it so that the camera will just turn itself completely pointed down into the base of the camera, so even if it was recording still, it's not going to see anything. Now, obviously, with its lower price, you're going to have some things that it could do better. One of those things being that the 1080p resolution isn't very impressive. You're not going to be reading license plates from 30, 40 feet away. Another thing that's a little bit of a downside, although not super shocking, is that this camera can only run off of 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, which in plain terms, it's just a little bit slower. It's still plenty stable, but it's just not as fast. One thing that's not necessarily a con, but it is something to think about, if you're going to use this camera to watch a driveway or something like that where you don't have an outlet right next to where you're going to place the camera, it's probably not going to be the one to use. To my knowledge, there isn't a battery powered option for this camera, so you might just have to pick a different one. The biggest con by far with this camera is the app and the numerous different capabilities that this camera has. However, they're mostly locked behind a paywall. One of these issues being that they do have cloud storage available. However, you have to pay for that. and there's numerous AI detection settings that you can have turned on to only notify you for based on people versus cars or pets, cats, dogs, whatever, the mailman. But all of those cost extra money every month, with the cheapest plan, I believe, being about $10 a month. Next, I'll take you guys with as I go through the app a little bit and kind of play around with the camera, show you some of the settings, and show you what it actually looks like if this was something you would purchase. All right, guys, so you can kind of follow along as I go through the app here and show you a little bit of the settings and controls. So first here we have the controls of the camera. You can manually adjust it left and right, as well as up and down, like I was saying earlier. Um, I have an SD card in the camera. So if you click on the SD card, it lets you look at all the different events, and you can kind of go back and use the slider to go back and look at them. Here's a little bit of a more interesting option. I believe there's a way to make it so that the siren turns on with certain motion events, but I think it's a little bit difficult to do, so I haven't really looked into it. So, if for whatever reason you want to activate the siren, you just hit that, and it's not super loud, but it's there. You can also turn the camera on to track motion. So right now, it should be tracking me as I walk around. And the motion tracking option does actually work pretty well. One of the other options is that privacy mode that I was talking about. So if you hit that, the camera holds whatever the last image was that it saw, and then it turns the camera completely down to face the base of the camera until you hit that button again, and then it will turn the camera back on. From here, we can go into the settings and see what all we can change. Starting with the detection settings, you can turn up and down the motion sensitivity, as well as the sound detection sensitivity, because this camera, we'll look at it later, can actually record based off of sounds as well. If you have a certain area that you don't want to get notifications on, so let's say that this camera is set up at the end of your driveway or viewing your driveway, and you don't want to get notified every time that there is a car that goes by on the road, you can simply, let's say that this is your driveway, and you only want to get notifications right there. That's the only spot now that you will get notifications if there's movement. So anything that happens right over here, you will not get any notifications about, and the camera won't follow. In the event recording setting, you can change what you want to have as a trigger for the camera to actually start recording, whether it's motion or sound. And the micro SD setting, I have a micro SD in all of my cameras because I prefer local storage. And if you see at the top, you can have it record only events, or you can have it continuously record. I prefer to have it recording continuously, that way you don't miss anything. In the notifications section, there's a lot of different options, and we're not going to go through all of them, but if you take a look at them, you can kind of figure it out yourself. In the alarm settings, there's kind of a cool feature. If this camera hears anything that sounds like a smoke alarm or a CO alarm, if you turn those on, it will actually alert you if it hears any of those. If we go into the advanced settings, here you can, once it loads, just kind of another example of the app being a little bit slow here. The motor controls, you can kind of change how fast you want the camera to move when you're controlling it. The night vision mode. So you can kind of control When it's in night vision mode, I just leave it on auto because it changes, obviously, whenever it feels like it has to. I also have the night vision infrared lights on always. It just makes it really easy for it to see clearer at night. I don't have the camera status light on just because I don't want to make it super obvious that there's cameras. And I have the timestamp on and the Wyze logo. I would definitely recommend having the timestamp on if you're going to have these cameras for security reasons. Automations is where you can go to make the cameras play like sirens and stuff at certain times. I'm not going to go into that because it is kind of messy. Um, in the sharing option here, you can actually share these cameras with several people. That way everybody has access to them. That's kind of it for the important things in the settings. Now, what do I think of this Wyze camera, or just Wyze cameras in general? For the money, this is not a bad camera. However, I'm not a big fan of subscription-based camera systems, and I really like to have local storage. I'm not a huge fan of them using a paywall to hide a lot of the AI detection abilities. After owning these cameras for approximately a year, for the most part, they've been trouble-free. There has been one issue that I've ran into that I'm not very impressed with, specifically with this model camera. I installed one of these about a year ago, and in that time, it's worked fairly well when it's working the way it should. Some of the time with that camera, I would have it mounted kind of like this, and it would be aimed this way. However, randomly, it would just turn itself and face it into the wall for no apparent reason. And even worse, when I went into the app to try and change it back using the option in the application, it wouldn't let me move the camera. So I had to go out and physically move the camera by hand, and that's not really a very cool thing. At the end of the day, if you need a cheap, budget-friendly security camera, this camera isn't a bad option. However, there are definitely better ones if you're willing to spend a little bit more money. If there's anything that I missed or any questions that you guys have about this camera, feel free to ask in the comments and I'll try and answer it for you. Additionally, if any of you have a better recommendation for a budget security camera system, please let me know. If you guys did like the video, please drop a like or a comment. I appreciate any compliments or criticisms that can help me make these videos better.